Hey everybody, how's it going? Between last week's briefing and right now, I was in Atlanta for the birth of my fifth grandchild, Caroline. Our youngest son and daughter-in-law and Caroline are all doing well. They're at home now, as we are. Now, over the last week, there was some heavy rain, very beneficial rain. I'll be talking about that in this briefing. I'll also be talking about the tropics, and I'll also be talking about an overall trend of warm and dry. Let's get started in today's briefing. Okay, well, first off, last week, look at that area of red. That was a beneficial rain in many spots, 1 to 3 inches or more of rain. And what I did here is I outlined that area of heavy rain in the black line, and the drought monitors behind that couldn't have fallen in a better spot, even though there was some flooding with that from a water resource perspective, soil moisture recharge, and for smaller tributaries and such, it definitely helped out. But like I said, when you get some really heavy rain like that, I'm sure there were, especially at the higher elevations, there were pockets of flooding and flash flooding with these heavier areas of rain. There's a dark area of red. Here's some very heavy rain in the northeast. So this is one of these situations where it's both of benefit and also some hazards. Now, temperatures last week over most of the nation were above normal, especially over the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. Warmest temperatures of the week, yellow hit the 90s, the orange here 95, and 100 degrees in spots as well. So there's certainly some warm air still around. Now, if we look at the dew point, if we shift our focus where we have 60s and 70s right in here, now you would expect it maybe in these areas, but right in here, that shows that potential for the heavy rain, sort of outlines it pretty good. And that is where the risk of flooding will be this week, heavy rain and flooding in those areas. Now, you might be wondering, that rain we had last week, I've been talking about low flows, and on these hydrographs, brown shades indicate the low flows. We actually had some bumps here, but really not a whole lot. That was on the upper Mississippi, this was on the Ohio, and this is on the lower Mississippi. So some bumps. But overall, you can see once that goes through, the rivers continue to go right down again towards low flow. So we're certainly, that rain put a dent in things, but it did not solve the issue of fall, maybe even into early winter low flow situation. Now this week, I think we have a couple things going on. We have a system impacting the western U.S., the northwest U.S. We have a very big ridge of high pressure here. That's going to bring warm and dry conditions. Then we have sort of a double whammy here. We have an area of low pressure here and a tropical system here. And that's going to combine to bring some heavy rain potential to the southeast mid-Atlantic. Now let's first talk about the temperatures. And you can see here that upper system is going to bring some cool weather to the western U.S. That ridge of high pressure is going to bring some unusually warm weather to the central and eventually the eastern U.S. Then as we get into October, sort of a dividing line right here, the western U.S. cooler than normal, eastern U.S. warmer than normal. And it's going to be unusually warm this week. Matter of fact, look at this. Parts of North Dakota and Montana, a heat index of 2. And on Monday, anything in the darker red will be making it into the 80s. So that's temperature. Let's talk about the tropics. A couple things I'm watching. First of all, major hurricane, 145 mile an hour winds, Humberto, that's going to stay well offshore. The one we want to keep an eye on is potential tropical cyclone 9. That's forecast to become a depression today, then a tropical storm tomorrow, then eventually a category 1 hurricane. So a couple things. First of all, look at the cone here. That does indicate the potential of coming very near to the coast, but the model ensembles make a very abrupt turn, 90-degree turn here, and there's a pretty good agreement with that. And the track, you can see here, hurricane, tropical storm, it shifts it off abruptly to the east middle of next week. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But even if it does that, we still are going to have enhanced wind, wave, some surge, and heavy rain as that gets near to the coast. So keep that in mind. Now, where will that rain threat be? Well, we have a couple things going on. First of all, we have a stalled front here, and this area of low pressure will be moving along it. Then we have the rainfall streaming in, or the moisture and rain streaming in from this potential tropical cyclone 9. So the combination of that's going to bring some really heavy rain from southern Virginia across the eastern Carolinas, and I think that will result in the potential for some flooding. Okay, so let's look at week 2 and a little bit further out. Boy, look at this. Here's temperature week 2, weeks 3 and 4. We are looking at overall some pretty widespread above normal temperatures. You think this time of year we'd be cooling down a bit, getting some crisp fall weather. Well, it looks like it's going to be at least heading into the rest of September into October. Early October looks pretty mild. And overall, it looks like that dry pattern is going to continue. Now, I want to end the briefing. This is the big picture, the next 30 days. And this is showing the temperatures. And it looks like the upper Midwest is going to have a delayed start to fall. And this is perhaps one of the more important graphs, images in the briefing. I wanted to show you how dry it still looks. So the rain that occurred last week put a dent in the drought, but I think we're going to go right back and build that. And areas that didn't get that rain last week are going to intensify drought. So a lot of talk about drought, I think, for the rest of the fall. That's this week's briefing. Y'all have a great week. Take care.